respected chairman and my long-time friend, Shri.T.P.Srinivasan, my esteemed friends, and this afternoon's chief guest, Dr. John Samuel, my esteemed colleague and friend, Mr. Suhail, my dear friend, Mr. K.M.Bashir, esteemed guests, and dear brothers and sisters, friends and colleagues. We have assembled here this fine afternoon, marked by a welcome shower, to listen to Dr. John Samuel, who is delivering the 13th Bashir Memorial Lecture, the topic of which has been announced by my friend Mr. Yunus. I am standing before you to welcome our esteemed guest, Mr. Srinivasan and Dr. John Samuel, and all of you who have responded very graciously to our simple invitation and have come here to make the occasion really memorable. I wonder, the simple word welcome, which has only a very limited lexical meaning, in all the dictionaries I have looked up, is sufficient to welcome such a distinguished select gathering in the absence of a better word than welcome. I would like to put the entire warmth that I feel now in that word welcome and articulate that word welcome with the sincerity that I can command and extend to you all a very, very warm welcome. The 13th lecture, some of you might have attended earlier lectures, Bashir Memorial Lectures. We had very eminent people to deliver this lecture, and to keep up that high tradition, we invited Dr. John Samuel to deliver this year's lecture on a very significant topic that is extremely relevant to the present day Kerala. I don't want to enumerate the names of those who delivered this lecture in the past, and it will read like a who is who of contemporary India's intellectuals and the cream of the intelligentsia of the country. Great historians like Sarvapalli Gopal, great scientists like P.K. Iyengar, and intellectuals of their stature, delivered these lectures in the past. And today, we have assembled here, as I mentioned a little while ago, to listen to Dr. John Samuel. The meeting is presided over by a long-time friend of mine, Mr. T.P. Srinivasan, who was a student in the University College when I was on the faculty of the University Institute of English. And I have been very close to him, watching his career with great pride. And as you might perhaps know, he ended a very distinguished diplomatic career as the representative of India in the United Nations organization. He had had other important assignments too. So we consider as extremely lucky to have to preside over a very important, this is one of our flagship programs. And to preside over such a very important event, we are lucky to have a man of T.P. Srinivasan's stature, experience, and he is a friend of Vakamaulavi Foundation through me. Perhaps it is, I suppose, only in the fitness of things that I recall the memory of late K.M.Bashir, in whose memory this lecture has been instituted by the foundation. So the 19th century American philosopher, poet and essayist Ralph Waldo Emerson has said that every institution is the shadow of an individual. Of course, this dictum is to be taken, will taste better if you take a little pinch of salt. But as far as this foundation is concerned, the adage contains a very important substratum of truth. This name itself is building after him. And we owe everything what he did in the course of 5 years, very short period, in which he was here in Kerala after his retirement from the International Labour Organization as the head of the Statistical Bureau of ILO. I don't want to narrate his whole life here this afternoon. After a brilliant educational career, Mr. Bashir joined the Indian Statistical Service and worked in the Yojana Bhavan in Delhi and played very significant roles in several of the projects of the Planning Commission and the Government of India. In 1967, if I remember correctly, he joined the International Labour Organization and retired from there in 1987 or so. He had a very distinguished career during the course of his, work at Geneva. He was keeping in touch not only with all his friends here, and he cultivated several important people who used to go to Geneva for several purposes. So by the time he returned to Kerala, after his retirement, he had a wide circle of friends. And those who knew him personally when he is alive might remember that he was a restless soul, a workaholic, if I may say so. He enjoyed working ceaselessly for the projects that he considered very important. I knew him when he was in Delhi and in Kerala before, by his reputation, through some of our common friends. But I had the privilege of meeting him and working with him only after his retirement from ILO, and he settled down here in Thiruvananthapuram. He was instrumental. In fact, he was the man who started the Kerala Statistical Institute and was the executive director of that organization for a long time, till he died, I suppose. So, even perhaps after retirement, he was working more assiduously, not only for the welfare of the community, society to which he belonged, but he wanted, with a determination, to improve the quality of the people here through institutions like this. And it was his determined effort that brought this institution into being. Soon after his coming over here, he purchased the land, and he was a great admirer of Vakam Maulavi. He didn't want to go to the past and live there at the time of Vakam Maulavi, but he wanted to seek inspiration from the work of Maulavi and carry forward the work that Maulavi was doing. And it was for that purpose that he wanted to establish this foundation. And within a short period, because of his enthusiasm and restless work, of course this building did not come up at that time, but he constructed a semi-permanent structure here and began work and organized several programs and took up some of the projects also. It was when he was working so ceaselessly in those days. I knew he put his entire soul into the work. And on a day like this, when we had a function, and he was busy organizing that function for the last several weeks, and due to some factors over which he had no control, the meeting was a little delayed, and he could not organize and complete the meeting, the function, in the manner in which he really wanted to organize it. He was very depressed, I know, I still remember. Then when he went home in the evening, and he had a minor stroke. His mind was disoriented when I met him in the morning, and we took him to the hospital, Sri Isra Medical Center, and scanning was done, and it was confirmed that it was a stroke. And he was handicapped for some time, but he was very eager to recover from that illness and to be back in circulation. And even before he completely recovered, he began to participate in functions like attend meetings, speak in a very, very enthusiastic manner. One thing that I noticed in him was there was no economy of energy that he spent for several purposes. He used to overspend his energy, and that was one reason, I believe, that reason is death. So, when he recovered partially, he attended a meeting in the University College, which was attended by a very select gathering, which included Dr. Valiyathan and a few other doctors. He received medical attention immediately, but even then he succumbed. That was the sad story of his death. Then we were at a loss as to what we should do with this project that he so dearly conceived and wanted to execute fully. We decided to take over the work with the help of his wife, who recently died in Washington, and his two daughters, Dr. K.M.Bashir and Dr. Sultana, and his only son, Dr. Sahir, and the kins of the family also came to our rescue. And we completed the building, and we began to take up projects from outside funding agencies and with our own resources also. Very meaningful programs we organized. And we are now, at that time we decided to institute this memorial lecture, of which I spoke to you a little while ago. So this is the 13th lecture. And the foundation has expanded its activities considerably, and we want to expand it still further and take up projects and programs that are very, very needed at this very critical juncture of our country and of the state. This meeting was, this memorial lecture was organized, and we decided to invite Dr. John Samuel, because he is a keen student of Kerala history, politics, economy, society, and culture. He has written extensively on Kerala with a very rare perception of the conditions here. Dr. John Samuel is now in York and Oslo, the capital of Norway. He is associating himself with the work of UNDP, particularly assessment of democratic governance. And there is a project for UNDP for that. And he is one of the chief, scientists, if I may say so. He is a social scientist. He is an economist, a sociologist, and a political thinker, and a writer. So we made use of this opportunity of his arrival in Kerala and invited him, and he readily acceded to our request to deliver this lecture. And Mr. Srinivasan, who is now presiding over this function, as I mentioned some time ago, not a technical student of mine. Even then I consider him as my student, because when I was a teacher at the Institute of English, he was studying his MA here in the University College. And many of his friends were my students. Here, Dr. Jamila is sitting in front of me. He was my student at the Institute of English. So many of them made very brilliant careers. And one person of whom I am really proud is Mr. Srinivasan. And he made his mark in the diplomatic field. And after retirement also he was, engaged in several activities in the city. Now, as you might perhaps know, he is the Vice Chairman of the Kerala State Council of Higher Education and Research, a very important organization. His predecessor, the founder predecessor, Professor K.M.Bashir, is a friend of mine, and I had opportunities to associate myself with the work of the council on several occasions. And there is a national council now, National Council for Higher Education and Research. So, in fact, before that National Council came into existence, Kerala started the State Council. That was a pioneering work that the last government did, and he is now holding the charge of the Vice Chairman of the Council. At this context, the Council can do very great work to improve the standard. We have to improve the quality and to expand higher education, qualitatively and quantitatively. We have to develop, because we want to see that at least 30% of our students in the higher education sector by 2020, if we want to sustain this development, about which now we are very proud. I don't know whether it is here development or growth. Those two words are different. Now our obsession is with growth, not particularly development. In Kerala, in the last 50 years, what we witnessed in this state was real development, even when the state was a very poor state economically. We could be proud of the total literacy, the universal primary education, not only primary education, universal secondary education also. We neglected higher education, and we have to make up for the loss of time. And the council can do yeoman service in these two areas: expansion, qualitative and quantitative. So, I welcome both of them to this function once again, and I overstayed here because I wanted to say several things, and my physical handicap was one reason why I took such a long time. Sorry. Generally I don't get this. Slips like this. I don't speak very long. So, as I mentioned a little while ago, Dr. John Samuel will deliver the 13th Bashir Memorial Lecture on political economy, transition, and the emerging neo-conservative sectarianism in Kerala. And this sectarianism, I think, is the product of the kind of neo-liberalization that we are, the policy that we are following. Because these things are twins. Neo-liberalization and neo-conservatism. In the West it is like that, as you might know in America and other places. So I don't want to stay long here before the mic. I once again thank you for those who have come here and welcome them once again to this very memorable function. Thank you.